I hope the first video was helpful, and now we're going to go into Algebra 2 section 1.2, and we're going to be dealing with properties of real numbers. Now please don't forget to first, before you start this video, that you remember to do the vocabulary. Those are all the highlighted words. So go ahead and pause this now if you haven't, and then we're going to start. The real number properties, there's two different sets. Real number properties can be properties for addition under these or multiplication. And there's a chart in your book that you can look up that has all of these. I'm just going to explain it. If you haven't done so, you could pause this and write what's on the board, or you can go ahead and wait until I've discussed it and then write after. It's your choice. So the first one is commutative. Basically what that means is that with addition, it doesn't matter which way you have it. A plus B equals B plus A, because there's no difference between which one comes first. The associative property would be A plus B plus C. If I did this first and then added this, it would be no different than if I added these two first and got this. So, for example, if I had 1 plus 3 plus 7, I can do 7 plus 3 and then add that and it'll still give me 11, or I can do 3 plus 1 and then add that and it'll still give me 11, either way. And that's what the term associative means. The next one is identity. The identity function is basically very similar. It's just basically anything that you add to 0 will give you the number. So identity means if you add 0 to any number, it'll still give you the original number. Yes, 7 plus 0 is still 7, 8 plus 0 is still 8, you know, so on and so forth. The inverse property is basically telling me what number can I add to get 0. So for example, if I have 8, what number can I add to get 0? Well, the opposite of 8 would be negative 8, so 8 minus 8 would be 0. Or 6, what number can I add to 6? Minus 6 equals 0. The 6 would be the addition inverse to negative 6, okay? So if I ask you, what is the addition inverse to negative 7? Well, what plus negative 7 gives me 0? That would be a positive 7. So that would be equals 0. So they're addition inverses to each other because I'm adding. The next one that we're dealing with is the multiplication real number properties, and it's very similar to the addition, except instead of adding, we're going to be multiplying. So the commutative is quite similar. That just means it doesn't matter which way I multiply. 3 times 7 is still 21. 7 times 3 is still 21. So you can switch them in whatever order. Associative is also similar. It doesn't matter if I multiply 1 times 3 times 2. 1 times 3 is 3, times 2 is 6, or I can do 3 times 2 is 6, times 1 is still 6. So it doesn't matter which order I do first. Should I do these two first and then multiply this last, or should I multiply this first? That's the term of the associative. The identity is where it gets a little bit more different. Instead of dealing with the number 0, we're dealing with the number 1. Okay? The identity basically, whatever you multiply A times 1, you always get the same number. 7 times 1 is 7. 8 times 1 is 7. 9 times 1 is 7. Basically, the term identity means mirror itself. What number do you get and to get itself? The inverse here is basically how do I get the identity number 1? How is it if I have a number, what can I multiply to get me 1? For example, if I have 7, okay, in order for me to turn 7, I have to multiply it by 1 over 7. Right? Because 7 times 1 is 7, and then I divide that by 7 and it gives me 1. If I have 1/3, I have to multiply it by the whole number 3, and that would give me 1. That is then the inverse. So inverse basically is what number can you multiply to get the number 1. The last one is the distributive. Distributive is basically when you have a number and then the parentheses. This means that I need to take this and share it with every term. So even if there's another plus or another minus, whatever it may be, I need to share it with every single term. So I take this A and I share it, so I get AB. I take this A again and I share it with C. So if I have 3 times x plus 4, Then I need to take this 3 and share it with the x. I end up with 3x. And then I need to take this 3, multiply it by 4, and I get 12. This means that I share it with every single term. If there's another term, for example, if I add a y, then I do have to share it again, giving me 3y. Okay, go ahead and pause it and write it down if you haven't done so already. Now we have our examples. This one is basically to help us name the property. So if I have negative 8 plus 8 plus 15 equals 0 plus 15. So the change is this. This turns into this. So when they're asking you to identify the property, they want you to focus on the change. 15 stays the same, if you see. But negative 8 plus 8 turns into 0. What does that mean? Well, I know that I added, so it's an addition, additive property. But what specific property is it? Well, because it equals 0, it becomes our identity property. So it's addition identity. This one is asking us to identify the addition and multiplication inverse for negative 7. So basically, I need to find out what becomes negative 7. What is the addition inverse? So inverse is, for addition, is what can I add to this to make it 0? So negative 7 plus a positive 7 would make it 0. So that's the addition inverse. The multiplication inverse is what can I multiply this in order to get a 1? Now, I definitely need to multiply it by a negative because a 1 is not negative. So if I have two negatives multiplied together, I get a positive. So multiplying negative 7 times negative 1 over 7 gets me 1. So let's check it. Negative 7 times negative 1 over 7. This and this cancel out to give me a positive. 7 times 1 is 7, divided by 7, which gives me 1. So it does check out. So these two are our answers. Sometimes these ones might be a little bit different. You might have different answers when you get to class, and that's no worries. But go ahead and try page 15, number 6 and 8. So 15, 6, and 8 is the one you're going to do before we do our last problem. So our last problem here is to simplify. This one we're going to be using a combination of all the properties. And basically it's not asking you to solve. So I'm not going to get one number, but it's asking me to simplify. So I just have to condense it until I can't do any more steps possible. The first thing you want to start off with, because they have these numbers, this looks very similar to the distributive property. If you don't know what that is, go ahead and look that up again. The distributive property means all this in front of the parentheses. Remember, in the order of operation, parentheses comes first. This in front of the parentheses, I have to share it with every term. So I have to share 4 with 3a, so 4 times 3a is 12a. Oh, what an ugly 2. Okay, then I have to share that 4 with a negative b, so it'd be negative 4b. And then I have to share this, but please keep in mind that when you distribute, you also have to bring whatever's in front. So if this is a negative, I have to distribute that too. This just so happens to be a positive, but I'm going to bring the whole thing and I'm going to share it with b. So I have positive 2 times b, which gives me 2b. And then I have positive 2 times, and remember you take the sign with it, positive 3a, which gives me positive, so plus 6a. Alright? So now what do? Well, my next step is to simplify combine like terms. Here's an a and here's an a. So 12a plus 6a gives me 18a. My next one are b's. Negative 4 plus 2b brings me to a negative 2b. So here are my answers. This is my answer. Because I can't simplify anymore, this becomes my answer. Because there's no like terms I can combine. I don't know the value for a and b, so I stop here. Now for your last problem, you're going to try page 15, number 12. 15, number 12, bring it to class, and I'll see you then.